there we go. There is the spots that we were looking for. So Tingana has kindly obliged and is now lying out in the open at Buffelshoek Dam. So he's popped out and you can see he's fallen back asleep. Oh, there's a bit of eye action that's just opened, which is great news. So I'm super glad that we managed to kind of catch up with him. He's having a nice rest. You can see his belly is not full, but it's definitely a little bit in there, and so he must have enjoyed his daika and then came for a drink. And I was hoping that was going to be the case, is that he would come up here, and so that's why we were spending time in this area. So luckily for us, he made a bit of noise and called, because otherwise I don't think any of us would have found him. He's lying, even though it's quite open where he is lying quite flat, and it's very difficult actually to see him from any of the roads. It's only because he made noise that we kind of investigated these areas and were able to find him. But how cool is that? He looks as though he's fairly sleepy and fairly relaxed about things. He's been great to have him around as much as we have over the last few days, and like I was saying earlier, even though he's got this limp at the moment and he's struggling a little bit, it seems as though he must have managed just fine last night if he found himself a daika. Whether or not he killed it, I don't know, but I would imagine so, because we haven't found any tracks for other leopards up in this general vicinity over the last week, and we have scoured Djuma from top to bottom for leopards for the TV show this morning. So I would imagine that he managed to bring that down on his own, which then means that paw, even though it might be a bit sore, it still means that he's able to at least find some sort of food, and as long as he's finding food, he'll be absolutely fine. But that is one tired, happy, content cat. I think he's probably thoroughly enjoying the fact that there's also no sun this afternoon as well. So, Francis from Israel, you say that leopard whisperer strikes again. Well, I'm not so sure about that. After this morning, I'm doubting just how much that capability is around. This morning we checked absolutely everywhere to try and find leopard, and we sort of failed in our mission, unfortunately. But that's the way it goes. There are cats that, if they don't want to be found, they won't be. And then at the end of the day, we still have had so much luck with leopards this week. I've seen plenty leopards and spent so much time with them this week. It's been actually quite fun. I've had a really good time. Wiem and I have spent, I think, probably in total, we've maybe spent close to 10 hours with Tingana this week, which is a long time. It's probably the most I've ever spent with him in such a short space of time ever. So I've really thoroughly enjoyed it. Most of it has been watching him do exactly what he's doing now, which is sleep. And other times we've watched him hobble along and kind of look at things, and he's had a few little run-ins with Ellies, but otherwise he's been such a star to have around. It's been really quite cool, and to be able to get these sort of close visuals of him has been absolutely phenomenal. So you can see he is breathing quite heavily, and that's just because he'll probably be digesting a bit. Let's see now when he rolls over. There we go. It is beautiful. That's better. Nice. There we go. Now he's up. Look how beautiful that is. That's one thing about summer, and it's why I absolutely love the summertime, is look at that green grass in contrast to that golden spotted coat. There's very few things in life that is that pretty. I always think that they just contrast so nicely against green grass at this time of the year. Right, now from something absolutely exquisite and beautiful that is going to take a nap, I believe we're going across all the way to James with something that's quite ugly, and no, I don't mean him himself. I am indeed, and Tingana is now up and moving. You can see he's still limping around a little bit. Whether he's going to move far, I'm not. But I think he's going to go and just sit down right over there, where it's going to be difficult to see him. Of course you are, Tingy. That's exactly where you like to be. So he seems to be as though he's going to sit. Let's try and see if we can just get a better view. Well, yeah, I'm going to go forward for you. It's just going to be the back of his head for now, because at the end of the day, we don't really have a better angle. You can see on his left side there's a lot of vegetation. On the right side will be a very steep bank that will look at the back of his head anyway, so we might as well just sit. He's been up and down quite a bit since you were last with us. He's kind of stood up and he's walked, and he's become a bit of a lawnmower. He ate a whole bunch of grass, including a stick that got stuck in his throat at one point, which he had to cough out very unceremoniously, and then he's now moved up on top of there. Interesting though that he is scent marking heavily, so he's been scraping his feet already, and if he's calling, I think he's just trying to tell everybody that I am still around, even though he's not been able to patrol as much as he normally does, that he's still around and that he is still the dominant male in this area, which is fantastic, because he's going to have to do that with all these younger males around, and with Tandi's den and her cub and if he's not the one that is kind of dominating and looking after it, then that cub is in some serious danger. So it's good that he's marking and calling and trying to make himself as known as possible. Interestingly enough, though, it was a kind of interesting sort of look. With checking the footage of Thandi that we've accumulated over this week, and she's also been in a little bit of a scrap. She's got a number of cuts on her as well. It's interesting to know what's gone on. I wonder if maybe she didn't have a little fight with Tingana. Difficult to say. I mean, it's all, you know, a sort of theoretical thing, because we don't know what happens in the middle of the night and what's actually happened to Tingana, but it could be a situation where that might have been the case. It's just interesting that both of them have got little cuts and scrapes all over their kind of faces and front end of their bodies. Both of them are, well, Thandi is actually perfectly fine. I mean, we know she killed a massive male impala, and so there's nothing wrong with her at all. She's doing just fine at the moment. So I wonder if maybe she was just trying to kind of enforce that the cub is a no-go area for even Tingana. It'll be interesting to know. You can see he's just watching one of the other vehicles on top. They're still kind of working out what he wants to do. I think at this stage he's not going to be moving too far. He's at least got a fullish belly, and at the end of the day, with that limp, I don't think he wants to put too much pressure, although he walked far last night, so it's possible. Brandon, you were wondering how do we tell the difference between the individual leopards and know the names of them? Well, Brandon, it depends on how you do it. Everyone has different ways of doing things. For me, there's just a general appearance of this animal, so it just looks a certain way, and that kind of straight away, as soon as I see it, after seeing it so many times, generally kind of I can roughly estimate who it is. In fact, even Tingana, from quite far away, he looks different to all of our other males, and so you can ID him quite far. He's got a big dewlap, quite wide shoulders, and so none of the other males in this area have even remotely as big a dewlap as what he's got. So let's see. Looks like he's going to come down for us, which is actually quite good news. He's going to come into a better area where we can see him. But other way that people will use is spot pattern. So spot patterns refer to either around the eyes, particularly over the whiskers there. So there's a few spots on top of the whiskers, and then any other kind of spot that stands out on the body. So Tingana's got the smiley face that he's got on his, I think it's his left shoulder, if I remember. Yes, the left shoulder is where the smiley face is. There it is. It's in there somewhere. So he's got that, and that kind of IDs his shoulder. And then the rest of the spots will also all be different to other leopards. So when you side by side compare them, you can often get a good comparison. But that's the kind of scientific way, is to use spot patterns. But when you see them a lot and you see leopards regularly, it can get a lot easier just to kind of overall appearance of them. Two leopards that are quite difficult is Shadow and Thandi. You've got to be a bit careful when you kind of first see them from a distance, because they do look quite similar. The thing is that once you kind of get a little closer, then it's not difficult, although I have confused them a few times as well. So, but I've made a few notes recently of little distinguishing features between the two and seem to have a good system now. All right, boy, have you found yourself a better place? You can see he's still eating grass, and I wonder why this is, because if he ate a duiker this morning, eating grass generally triggers regurgitation, and I would be surprised if he's trying to eat grass to regurgitate out what he ate today. I would have thought he would have been trying to digest and trying to get rid of, or trying to consume as much of that nutrition as possible, but maybe there's some hooves and hair and things in his stomach that is just making him feel a little bit uncomfortable, and so that's why he's eating, to try and get rid of it. But you can see he's really tucking into grass. The other day I also watched him. I thought he was eating grass, but he was actually licking all the water off it in the early morning. So sort of instead of actually eating the grass, he was just kind of taking water off. Now, I'm not sure if I heard that right, but either way, we're going to go back across to where Thandi's kill is, and I believe it's also being tucked into. Well, it seems that it's a grazing type of day for our cats. Maybe there's something in the air at the moment after a TV show. They're all going on diet and going on to a vegetarian lifestyle. Who knows? Either way, it's interesting behavior to watch, and it's amazing how that much grass they sometimes eat when they want it. You can see Tingana's gone fast asleep on the bank. It's not the best place. Now come down into this little drainage line and is past once again. About it at the